A banana costs about a quarter, cheaper than an apple, cheaper by weight than almost anything else in the store. It grew on the far side of an ocean. Somebody cut it down green, loaded it onto a refrigerated ship, sailed it across the sea, and trucked it to a shelf near you. And it still costs about 25 cents. The price is honest. Everything around the price is not. To make a tropical fruit that cheap, a company laid railroad track over dead men, paid for a war to install a friendlier president, helped the CIA remove another one, and shrank the whole banana down to a single clone. That clone is dying right now, and it already died once before. This is the story of how the most boring thing in the grocery store got that way. Pull up a chair. Go back to the 1870s. In America, a banana is a curiosity. At the 1876 World's Fair in Philadelphia, you could buy one wrapped in foil for about 10 cents, and you ate it with a knife and fork. It was exotic, a little risque, the kind of thing you tried once and then told people about. Bananas didn't grow anywhere near the people eating them. They came up from the tropics. They bruised if you looked at them wrong, and they rotted fast. A fruit like that should have stayed rare and expensive, forever. It did the opposite. By the early 1900s, a banana cost less than an apple that grew in an orchard up the road. In 1871, the banana trade into the U.S. was worth about $250,000. 30 years later, it was worth $6.4 million. Somebody had to build the machine that did that. A few somebodies. None of them were kind men. The first one was Miner Keith. In the 1870s, Keith took a job in Costa Rica, built a railroad from the highlands down to the Caribbean coast, to a port called Limon. The terrain was jungle. The jungle had malaria, yellow fever, and dysentery, and it used all three. The first 25 miles of that track killed around 4,000 men. 3 of them were Keith's own brothers. By the time the line was finished, something like 5,000 people had died building it. Keith needed to feed the workers he had left, and feed them cheap. So along the tracks he planted bananas. They grew fast, they grew easy, and a man could eat one without putting his tools down. The railroad lost money. The bananas he planted to feed the crew turned out to be worth more than the railroad. So Keith started shipping them north to New Orleans and selling them. The side project became the whole point. In 1899, he merged his banana business with a Boston outfit, and they named the new company United Fruit. On its first day, it controlled about 3/4 of every banana sold in America. Here's the thing that actually made bananas cheap. United Fruit built a navy, dozens of steamships, painted white to throw off the tropical sun and keep the holds cool, so the fruit rode north slow and green instead of turning to mush. People called it the Great White Fleet. For a while, it was the largest private fleet in the world, which is a strange sentence to write about a banana. That's the trick. A banana is cheap because one company owned the land, the railroads, the ships, the ports, and the ripening rooms, the whole way down. They didn't buy bananas from anyone. They were the entire chain. And a chain that big, owned by one company, in countries that couldn't say no, is where the trouble starts. The trouble has a name, Sam Zemurray. People called him Sam the Banana Man. Zemurray came over as a poor kid from Russia and started at the very bottom of the business. He bought the overripe bananas the big importers were about to throw out, the ones that had to sell in a day or two, and he raced them to market before they spoiled. He made a fortune on fruit other people called garbage. By the early 1900s, he had his own company and a lot of land in Honduras. Then in 1910, the Honduran government started talking about taxes and rewriting his land deals. Zemurray didn't care for the terms, so he bought a war. He hired a mercenary named Lee Christmas, who rounded up a crew of gunmen in New Orleans. They loaded onto an old U.S. Navy ship called the Hornet, sailed to Honduras, and put an exiled ex-president named Manuel Bonilla back in power. By force. Bonilla took office in early 1912. He paid Zemurray back the way these things get paid back. Tax breaks and land. The going rate, it turns out, for lending a man a country. A private citizen overthrew a government to protect his fruit shipments, and it worked so well that Zemurray eventually walked into United Fruit itself and took the whole company over. By now, this had happened often enough that it needed a name. The name came from a writer, O. Henry, the short story guy. In the 1890s, he was holed up in Honduras, dodging an embezzlement charge back home, and he spent his time watching how the place ran. In a 1904 book called Cabbages and Kings, he invented a little country he called Anchuria and described it as a small maritime banana republic. The phrase stuck. A banana republic. A country with a flag and an anthem and a president where the real government is a fruit company. These days, it's a brand at the mall. I'm sure that's fine. Up to here, you can almost tell this as a story about clever, ruthless businessmen. Then you reach December 1928, and the tone changes, because people start dying who never signed up for any of it. In Colombia, on the banana plantations near Santa Marta, the workers had had enough. They wanted written contracts, 6-day weeks, to be paid in real money instead of company coupons that only spent at the company store. In November, tens of thousands of them, at least 25,000, walked off the job. It was the biggest strike the country had ever seen. United Fruit wanted it gone. The U.S. government let Colombia know that if Colombia couldn't protect American property, the Marines were available to come do it. Colombia got the message. On the night of December 5th, thousands of strikers and their families gathered in the town square in Cienega. The army set machine guns on the roofs around the square. An officer read out a decree giving the crowd 5 minutes to leave. Then they opened fire. No one knows the real number. The official count was 47. People who were there said hundreds, maybe 2,000. The bodies, by most accounts, were loaded onto trains and carried off. That's the detail that tells you everything. A killing big enough that the count runs from 47 to 2,000, and the honest answer is that nobody was keeping track of the dead. A boy named Gabriel Garcia Marquez grew up nearby. Years later, he wrote that night into 100 Years of Solitude, the train cars full of bodies. A lot of readers assume he made it up. He didn't. The biggest one came later, and this time the United States government ran it directly. In Guatemala, United Fruit was the largest landowner in the country. It owned more than 40% of the good farmland, and it paid almost nothing in tax. Most of that land, it didn't even farm. It sat on it, empty, so no one else could grow bananas and undercut the price. In 1950, Guatemala elected a president named Jacobo Arbenz. He took office in 1951 with a plan. Take the unused land, the land sitting idle, and hand it to farmers who had none. He offered to buy it from United Fruit, and he offered to pay the exact value the company had written down on its own tax forms. That was the problem. For years, United Fruit had lowballed the value of that land to keep its taxes down. Now, the government offered to pay the lowball number, and suddenly the company swore the land was worth 20 times more. There is a lesson in there about writing down a number you might one day be held to. United Fruit went to work in Washington. It hired Edward Bernays, the man who more or less invented modern public relations. And Bernays filled American newspapers with a single idea. Guatemala had gone communist. He flew journalists down on company trips and fed them the story. It worked. And the company kept very good company. The U.S. Secretary of State, John Foster Dulles, had once been a lawyer for United Fruit. His brother, Allen Dulles, ran the CIA. In 1954, the CIA ran an operation called PB Success. A small, fake rebel army, a few planes, and a radio station pretending to be a popular uprising. Arbenz, the elected president, lost his nerve and resigned. There was no happy, pro-business democracy on the far side of that coup. There were 36 years of civil war that killed something like 200,000 people. All of it traceable in part to a fruit company that didn't want to pay its taxes. The company's luck finally ran out in the 1970s, and it ran out in a strange way. By then, United Fruit had a new name. United Brands, and a new boss, a former rabbi turned executive named Eli Black. In 1974, a hurricane flattened the plantations, and Honduras put a new tax on banana exports. Black's company quietly bribed a Honduran official about $1.25 million to get that tax cut. Before it came out, Eli Black did something strange. On the morning of February 3rd, 1975, he locked his office on the 44th floor of the Pan Am building in New York, took his heavy briefcase, and smashed it through the window. Then he jumped. The bribe came out anyway. The scandal got a name, Bananagate, and it became one of the reasons Congress passed a law in 1977, making it a crime for American companies to bribe foreign governments. That law is still on the books. A banana helped pay for it. So that's the money and the blood. Here's the biology, and it might be the strangest part. The banana you eat has no seeds. Look next time. Those tiny black specks down the middle are all that's left of them. The plant can't reproduce on its own anymore. Every banana you have ever eaten was made by cutting a piece off another banana plant and growing that. Genetically, every banana is a copy of the same single plant. One plant, cloned a few billion times, sold in every store on Earth. It might be the most successful living thing on the planet that can't have children. That works beautifully until something learns how to kill it. Because if a disease can kill one of them, it can kill all of them. They're identical. And the banana that built United Fruit wasn't even the one you know. It was a variety called Gros Michel, Big Mike. Bigger, sweeter, tougher skin, easier to ship. That was the banana for the first half of the 20th century. Then a fungus showed up. They called it Panama disease. And because the whole crop was one clone, it ran through the plantations like fire through dry grass. There was no resistant plant to fall back on because every plant was the same plant. By the 1960s, Gros Michel was finished as a business. Gone. Quick aside, you know how fake banana candy doesn't taste like a real banana? There's a good chance that's because the artificial flavor was matched to Gros Michel, the banana almost no one alive has tasted. The candy stayed the same, the banana underneath it disappeared. The industry survived by switching to a backup, a blander, more fragile variety called the Cavendish. It shrugged off the fungus that killed Big Mike, so they tore out every Gros Michel plantation and replanted with Cavendish. That's the banana in your kitchen. About 99% of every banana shipped across a border today is a Cavendish, which means we did the exact same thing all over again. One clone, no backup. We had already seen this movie. We bought a ticket for the sequel. You can probably see where this goes. Around 2010, a new strain of the old fungus turned up. They call it Tropical Race 4. It kills the Cavendish, and there's no cure. You can't spray it off. Once it's in the soil, it stays for decades. It started in Asia. It moved through the Middle East and Africa. In 2019, it reached Latin America, the place that grows almost every banana the US and Europe eat. It is doing to the Cavendish exactly what Panama disease did to Big Mike, slowly, plantation by plantation. The only real question is the clock. So the banana might get a lot more expensive, or vanish for a while, sometime in the next few decades. And if it does, it'll be for the same reason it got cheap in the first place. They made it uniform. One plant, one company, one chain, the whole way down. That is what made it cost a quarter, and that is what keeps trying to kill it. Next time you're in the store, the bananas will be there. Same as always. Same green gold pile, same little sticker, same price that's barely moved in 50 years. It's the cheapest thing in the building. It's also, by a wide margin, the bloodiest. The label just never had the room to print that. Pull up a chair. We'll see you next time.